begin this month sermons focusing on heritage, in the book of Genesis, chapter 26. Beginning with verse 17, I've chosen the New King James Version translation. Then Isaac departed from there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Isaac dug again the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. He called them by the names which his father had called them. Also Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "This water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, because he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." Amen. This is my Bible, God's holy word. It is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. The grass withers, the flowers fade, but the word of our God shall stand forever. This is my Bible. This is my weapon, the sword of the Spirit. Amen. I want y'all to be patient with me today. I want to try to say all what I put down here. So just listen. Don't watch your watch. Just listen today. And I want to talk about digging previous wells. Digging previous wells. The Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, grew into the most famous and prosperous black urban communities in the United States during the early 1900s. It was dubbed the Negro Wall Street by educator Booker T. Washington, for this community had a flourishing population that included both a working class and a middle class of prosperous citizens. After the Civil War, most of all black townships that had been established in the United States were located in Indian and the Oklahoma territories. And one of those townships was Greenwood, right outside of Tulsa. It was created in 1906 by one of Tulsa's earliest pioneers, O.W. Gurley. He had come from Arkansas to Oklahoma in the 1889 land rush. He was a black educator and an entrepreneur who gained wealth by speculating in land. So Gurley purchased 40 acres on the northern outskirts of Tulsa. And during the first 2 decades of the 20th century, Greenwood appealed to African American Southerners who were migrating to the north and to the west in hopes of escaping the economic and political repression of blacks in the South. So many of them came to Tulsa and soon created this prosperous community in segregated Greenwood. According to 1920 city directories, there were 108 black business establishments, including 2 newspapers, 41 groceries and meat markets. There were 30 cafes and restaurants, offices for 33 professionals, including 15 physicians and attorneys in Tulsa's African American community. They were serving about 10,000 residents. Greenwood had clothing stores, funeral parlors, billiard halls, hotels, barber shops, hairdressers, shoemakers, tailors, nightclubs. They had 2 movie theaters because most white establishments refused to serve African American, and so black entrepreneurs held a captive market, rich in a pent-up demand. But on May 31st, 1921, word had got out that a black man had raped this white woman, and so the sheriff of Tulsa arrested him and took him to jail. Well, the blacks of Greenwood had assembled themselves and had gone down to the jail to keep him safe from a mob that wanted to lynch him. The Tulsa riot started, and it put an end to the thriving district of Greenwood. It was estimated that 300 black men, women, and children were killed in that riot, and thousands were severely injured. Most of the 35 blocks of Greenwood, both the businesses and the residential neighborhoods, were destroyed, burned down by these white rioters. And nearly 10,000 African Americans, virtually that entire population, black population of Tulsa, was left homeless. After the destruction of Greenwood, the city of Tulsa denied aid to the survivors of the riot. However, the African American businessmen and residents of Greenwood took upon themselves to rebuild their community. They used their own resources. And also help was being sent to them from other communities across the United States. And by the summer of 1922, more than 80 businesses were again up and running. The Tulsa riot of 1921, although it was a major setback for Greenwood, was not the event that caused the deep decline in Greenwood's economy. The national civil rights movement of the early 1960s eventually led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And then, as you know it, African Americans began to use businesses and accommodations throughout Tulsa. They could now move into Tulsa, and the Greenwood district declined. And then it was no more. Every year in the month of February is designated Black History Month. And you all remember in 1926, Carter G. Woodson initiated Black History Month to raise awareness and acknowledge the accomplishments and influential experiences of black men and women. I would guess that Woodson's intention was to raise the hopes of black men and women of succeeding generations and inspire them to become their best person in an effort to uplift the race by excelling in every discipline. For many of the conveniences that we utilize and benefit from and enjoy in everyday life rose out of the minds and the sacrifices of black people. The creativity of the black minds contributed so much to the making of America, as we saw in the movie Hidden Figures. Yet we continue to be labeled by white America as liabilities and hindrances to the prosperity and the progress of this nation. Although troubled on every side, having endured unjust laws designed to subjugate and to oppress, we as a people have always been able to rise regardless of how far down we are crushed. Our history is full of known and unknown individuals who possessed an inner drive, possessed a constitution that not only caused them to dream, but enabled them to fight for a better day for themselves and the generations to come. Like in this story of our text, their works and contributions have been historically stopped up, buried, and opposed through the economics, politics, and racism of the dominant culture. But it's up to us to redig those previous wells so that we might tap into the life-giving and sustaining source that they bring. In this narrative in Genesis 26, famine strikes the semi-arid uplands of southern Canaan. And so Isaac moves to the more fertile territory of the Philistines on the coastal plain. He settles in the Philistine city Gerar, where he pretends that Rebekah is his sister, kind of like his daddy did. He pretends that Rebekah is his sister so the Philistines don't kill him. And it was here that Isaac was having good harvest, and the Philistines became jealous of his prosperity. So they filled in the wells that Abraham's servants had dug, and they asked Isaac to leave. Well, Isaac then journeys to the valley of Gerar, and he redigs some wells there. You know, in this narrative, wells provide the dominant motif. Yeah, for they are the tangible evidence of divine blessing. He, Isaac, obviously was aware of the locations of the wells, for they had been previously dug by his father Abraham. And I think I need to throw this in parenthetically. It's good to know your history, for that knowledge can lead you to having a blessed life. Isaac digs a previous well. Things are going fine for him until trouble arises, again from those of the dominant culture who had been observing his growth and prosperity, and once again they became jealous. Right there in verse 20 it says, "But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, 'This water is ours.' Now Isaac dug it, but they said, 'This water is ours.' So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him. These envious and jealous shepherds laid claim to a well that they did not put forth any time or effort to create. They stole it, just like many of the inventions and achievements of African Americans were stolen